So how can we close the gap between parametric design and actual design? Because generating options is great, but design is just not generic in nature. Instead, design is ambiguous, contextual, and very personal. Therefore, designers need to be able to specify, to nurture, and to refine their designs. That's why today I will show you a workflow that generates facade systems as blocks, which you can then further edit in SketchUp as editable components. So whether you like SketchUp or not, it's still one of the major tools used in preliminary design stages in major architecture firms. And therefore, as a parametric designer, you need to know how you can integrate with it. But before we dive in, my name is Marijn Lijmers, and on this channel, I share strategies and insights that help scale your parametric design workflows with Grasshopper. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And by the way, I believe that our industry does not need more software, but simply better mastery of the tools that we already have. That's why this year I will be launching a paid course for professionals working in architecture and engineering. On top of learning all the basics, this course will provide you with the advanced techniques and methods that help to develop highly performant and scalable parametric workflows. So if that sounds interesting to you, sign up for the waitlist using the link below and stay up to date. Alright, so here we have Codex already started designing something, and we have this parametric system. So essentially we have all these steps where we have the mass, we have course, circulation, floor plates, zone layout, roofs and terraces. This I still will need to do. Then the facades, then we actually update them after we place balconies and loggias. Then we do the course, and then we have all the final actual elements. So then we build the elements and floor plates and facades and so on. So I'm going to walk you through how we do all of this. But first, let's play around a little bit. All right, I want to have the plinth story from building 1. I want that to be 5 meters high. Also double the amount of windows on the south side, but only for the plinth. All right, great. So that's the double windows at the south side. I like that. Also, then the core for building 1 and also the facades on the north side should all be blind facades. So remove any windows. So just make them a continuous of those vertical pier elements, let's say. You messed something up with the parapets. The parapets should still be dominant, and also on the plinth, there should be a blind version of the gray plinth. Make sure that that looks harmonious. All right, now you blinded all the plinth facades. So I feel like we should have windows there. All right, it's not entirely what I meant here with these bands, but you know what? I'll take it. I'm just gonna fix this in my SketchUp model. Which brings me to the next point. So essentially, now that we have this model and I'm happy enough to start editing it, we can start to bake this. First, let's just save this as a preset so we can later revisit our models. So the plugins that we will need for this workflow are Elefront and the Rhino 8 components. And we also have a lot of Pancake in this workflow. So throughout our model, we have defined multiple blocks, and these blocks consist of objects. And these objects are essentially geometries with certain attributes and settings, right? And what we've typically done throughout the script, which you will notice, is that we have defined display attributes that will have a swatch, and it will contain, for example, geometries such as a box, right? And then essentially, this is the flow that we defined geometries, and then we could have multiple of these geometries making up a single, and then I'm using the O here because I would want to have the entire object, and then those objects we are inserting into a block. But what you will now notice is that this list of model extrusions, in this case, are becoming a single block definition, right? So it's important to understand that here we have a single block definition. Now you will also notice that these have been carefully added to our big pancake tree. So most important, or the most elementary part to understand, is that we in our script already determined where each block should exist, and then we got the transformation data from that. And the way that we do this in our script, and I will show you a small example later, is that we already position all these blocks in place, and then we essentially attach them to our main tree and we name them block instance. But it's important that we then have all the metadata as well. So all the metadata will basically be living on this level, whereas all the block geometry data lives more like on the smaller level. But the idea is that if we have metadata, then we can, for example, use the same block definitions, but give them different properties, such as which story or building they belong to, or building segment, but still having the minimal amount of blocks. All right. So I'm not going to go further into this for the moment, but then at least you know on a high level how we actually built our script. Okay. So down the line, we will be taking these block instances, and then we're going to be able to unpack, if you will, this block data, but more on that later. And then the other crucial plugin that we're using is Elefront, because what Elefront does really well is it is able to define blocks. So all we just need to do is we need to find a way conceptually to build a flow where we bake all of our objects from our parametric script by basically unpacking the block definitions and translating them into Elefront block definitions. Now this feels a little bit double, but this is because I think the best way to work with blocks is to also maintain interoperability and scalability is to work with the Rhino 8 blocks as much as possible, but where needed, translate it into the target of your workflow. And in this case, we want to only use Elefront whenever we want to get our blocks inside either the Rhino or the SketchUp environment. And then a key component will be the attributes, okay, the Elefront attributes, and a key component will be the attachment of the attributes. So of course, we would need to also unpack the objects that are inside this block definition. The reason this is now red is because we actually did not really define transformations here, and therefore this actually becomes empty. But the idea is that from these geometries, we will translate them into a Elefront block where we basically take whatever attributes we need here, such as color, and then we wire it up here, and then we essentially attach these as Elefront attributes to the Elefront block definition. And then what we'll need to do is we'll need to push these, and then automatically I just like to override here and set this to true. Okay, this is going to automatically always sync our blocks from our script to the Rhino document. And what we then do is we use these objects, and then we attach additional, if we want, this is actually kind of optional, but we could define additional attributes here, for example, keys and values for the metadata. Okay, I know this sounds a little bit complex, but I'll show this in more detail later on. And then essentially we will either detach the attributes here. I kind of like this. The idea is that we're going to have only a single wire workflow for all of our block definitions that will ever exist in our Rhino space. And these are high level, the components that we need. And in a previous video, I showed a very detailed breakdown on how you could build a large data tree with Pancake in which you could nest all the block definitions you need. So if you combine that knowledge with this workflow, then you should be able to build very scalable, efficient parametric systems. All right, so essentially we built this pipeline where we basically take all the block instances, and then we take each single block. So these are all the unique blocks that make up our entire design. And then we're essentially taking all the attributes. And it's important that we actually designate a layer, and we set the material source to layer basically for each layer, we essentially create a material automatically from the color. Okay, so what this is going to do is that once we bake all of our geometry that's inside these blocks, we bake them already inside the correct layer with the correct properties. So just build a pipeline where you have all the block definitions, you take the single blocks, you take the geometry they have. You should have already attached colors to them when you defined them. And then you're going to turn them into Elefront block definitions. So we're using Elefront. And then we're basically transforming these Elefront definitions back to their original location by grabbing the transformation data from the original blocks. Once we have done this, we are going to reattach all the values. In this case, I did just attach some basic coordination keys, like which building and which story it belongs to, right? So for each block. And yeah, then we're actually good to bake. So let's try this. And there you go. Now we have all of our data or all of our block definitions directly inside Rhino. Now it looks like it does not have a color here, but it actually does. So these are now our complete facades and balconies. By the way, for this demo, I didn't go as far to also do the floor plates in the course, even though we have them, but I'm just running out of time. Just put too much love into this. So yeah, let's actually save this as a SketchUp file. Hey, it's not really what I thought was gonna happen. I thought we actually had colors. Let's investigate this real quick. Why is that? Looks like we did not create the actual layers, so let's take a look at that. Okay, right, so now we have the materials created by this little piece of code. We're using human, so we're basically creating layers, and we essentially just have a set from all the colors present in our model, and we're creating them as materials, so therefore they are recognized. And this allows us to now actually look at the rendered view also with the colors, so that's something I did wrong initially. Well, clearly we didn't give this building much attention, but I think this building looks decent enough. Just 1 hour of back and forth with Claude. Actually, sorry, Codex. So now let's save this. Ta-da! Okay, the glass looks a little bit bad, so just fixing that for a little bit. Let's remove the profiles. And I think this looks quite all right. This detail looks kind of neat. And then we have all these components, and we are now actually able to edit this. So we could take these blocks and make further refinements to our model. Essentially, if we now would change something here, then we're affecting all these blocks, right? So this really could help us to add some special stuff to make our design stand out. Let's actually do something kind of meaningful here. Maybe we have a little detail here that's sticking out, almost like a hatch. Let's just say 500, and let's give it a little bit of a profile, 300, 200, like this. Yeah, that's good. It could kind of work. And the cool thing is, while we were making all these variants, I actually had been saving presets every now and then whenever I liked an option. And this basically now allows us to select from all our previous designs. Oh, okay, there's some really random designs here. So let's just cycle through them. But essentially all these buildings, I'm able to just export the same organized file from with the same systematic in terms of like the block definitions, and I can get a SketchUp model out of them. All right, so final recap of what we've built today. So essentially we have been discussing how we can take all the block definitions from our entire model. In this case, we used the facade, but you can extend this principle to all your other block definitions as well, which would then translate into Elefront block definitions with Elefront properties. Then we position them back into place. Then we attach some metadata attributes where necessary, and then we are good to bake. And then we should be good to actually inspect the model or continue working in Rhino. Of course, at this point, we can perfectly save this file as a SketchUp file and continue working there. If you got any value out of this video, let me know in the comments. Also let me know what I could potentially do better or what I could be discussing next time. And of course, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next video. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.